Hello guys and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's video I'm going to be reviewing your thumbnails. So here's how it's going to work guys. So I'm going to be spending about 2 to 3 minutes per thumbnail, and I'm also going to highlight things in a color coded fashion. So anything that I highlight in green will be the things that I think are good, anything I highlight in red are the faults, and anything at the end which I highlight in blue will be the actionable steps where I believe you could improve things or explore different options. So without wasting any more of your time, let's get straight into the video. Okay, so this thumbnail was designed by Egan Designs on Instagram. So let's just run through first of all what things we like. So what I like off the bat, Egan, is that you have used a bold font here and you've scaled it up to a good size, meaning it's readable from a distance, which is very important for thumbnails. You need to be able to read the text. What I also like is that you have this sort of raining money effect going on right here, just to help symbolize the fact that this thumbnail has something to do with money. That makes sense, right? And you've also added in some trading symbols right here just to breed familiarity with what the thumbnail topic is about. And I can also see that you've added in some sort of green color effect, which looks pretty good. Now moving on to the fonts, a glaringly obvious thing that I can see is that there's just a lot of negative space right here. As you can see, there's just so much negative space. So as you can see, you could probably add in something in this position. And what I would also say, Egan, is that you have a lot of colors going on right now. So you have a black going on, you have an orange going on, you have a blue going on, you have a yellow going on right here, you have a green going on. So there's a lot for the viewer to look at, and this can sometimes distract the viewer from focusing on the main message of the thumbnail. Okay, so moving on to room for improvement. As I mentioned before, let's just explore what we can add here. Maybe you can add some of these icons in this position, or maybe you just move all the text up and then you can just explore with what you want to add in this bottom position. And I'll leave it to you to explore those options. I would also say, Egan, to keep the color scheme to about 2 to 4 colors just to help retain the viewer's attention. Maybe you even take this black you have right here and you make it into a sort of darkish green just to make it blend in with the green glow effect you have going on. That way you've just now minused one color from the equation. All in all, good thumbnail with a good composition. It just needs a bit more improvement and you've got something really good. Now this thumbnail was created by Amha, and forgive me if I pronounce these names wrong. And let's now analyze this thumbnail. Now I can see that you've gone for the classic pinboard thumbnail style, in which case you'll find a lot of channels in these sort of crime documentaries or investigation niches using this style. Now from a design perspective, I like how you've added in this subject on a torn piece of paper, and I can see a bit of texture on the paper as well, so it looks really nice. And I also like how you've added in a drop shadow behind the paper as well. That looks really nice. I like how you've paid attention to detail and you've added in some shadows underneath each string just to help create that realistic look. And I also like how you've placed all your elements on the screen in a sporadic manner, so it's not so orderly, so it looks more realistic, because if you've ever seen a pinboard in the movies, they never look super orderly, and so this thumbnail gives off that same sort of vibe. Let's see here. So yeah, I also like how you've added in the sort of paintbrush effect going over the subject's eyes right here. And so this whole thumbnail is very in theme. Even though I don't know what the title is, I can make an assumption that it has something to do with this person right here, and that all these elements on screen have something to do with that person. So yeah, Amha is a very good thumbnail for a thumbnail which doesn't use much text to convey a message. Now with this thumbnail, I can't really see any faults. Maybe if we just zoom in right here, there is a little bit of this yellow overlapping on the border of the picture. Now, if that's not intentional, then obviously that would be the only fault I would say is in this thumbnail from a design perspective. Now, if I was to add my own personal touch, I would probably just increase the saturation of these pins. They look quite desaturated and they also look quite grainy. So maybe you've added a bit too much grain. What I would also probably do is add a vignette. So just darken these corners with a vignette, and that will probably increase the overall look of this thumbnail. So what I'll do for you, just for you guys, is I will actually add a vignette right now just to see how this would look. Let's see how this looks, guys. So yeah, as you can see, now it brings a lot of the focus back into the subject just by adding a little vignette. So let's just click OK. And as you can see, this is before and this is after. It really looks better when you do this. So again, just add a bit of a vignette and I think you've created a really good thumbnail. Now this thumbnail was done by Gish1 on Instagram. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Okay, now this one's interesting. Now I like the composition of how you have the hand and the shoe being the sole focus or the main focus of this thumbnail, and I also like the storytelling of this thumbnail. So as you can see, there is some blood on the shoe, and I'm assuming that the message or moral of this thumbnail is that someone created this shoe for profit and that in exchange someone had to suffer because of it. There's blood on the shoe. And as you can see with the New Balance logo, we can pretty much tell who this thumbnail is being directed to. Now with that being said, I can also see a couple of flaws in this thumbnail. Now if we just zoom into the shoe, you can see that the cutout isn't really good, and you can see that by the white outline of the shoe. As you can see, there are some fringes, and we need to make sure that when we are making these cutouts, that we make these cutouts accurate, especially if it's the main element of the thumbnail. And as you can see, you've done the same thing over here, so just make sure that you either use the pen tool to make very sharp cutouts, or that you spend more time if you're using the brush to make a selection. Also, when you're trying to make a selection of a subject or object, just make sure that, as you can see, you do not use a soft brush, because then what happens is you get a blurry effect, which you can see right here, which just doesn't look too good. As you can see right here, it's blurry. So we want sharp lines, especially for things like a shoe. And again, if you look at the thumb, you can see that the selection of the thumb is quite blurry. So with this thumbnail, I would say that the main fault is just not making good enough selections. Now for improvements that I would personally make is that I would add a vignette in the corners. Now I can see that it's quite dark here, but as you can see, it's not the same level of darkness over here. So I'm just assuming that you haven't yet added a vignette. And I would personally maybe explore a different background, because I do not see the correlation with algebra and this shoe. Maybe it's an aesthetic thing, so I'll leave that down to you, but in my personal opinion, my personal preference, I'd probably look into just looking at different background options, and I'm sure you'll find something which fits better. Now this next thumbnail was created by Ray Designs on Instagram, so let's have a look at your thumbnail. So what I like is that you have really enhanced the subject, so I can see how you've done some dodging and burning, and this is really going to help to make the subject stand out, and this is going to help to capture the viewer's attention. I also like how you have this sort of red and blue glow effects going on behind the subject. It's a very nice decorative element. You've also picked a good font here, and the positioning of your text is really good. It's not getting in the way of anything in the thumbnail that you want the viewer to look at. I also like the composition of this thumbnail. So you have the subject in the middle, and then you have 4 different elements on screen, which are the habits, and you have them symmetrically placed on screen. So you have a big one here, you have a big one here, and then a small one and a small one. So from a design perspective, I like how you've laid things out. And I also like the drop shadow effect you have with this text, which just overlaps these 2 text layers. It looks really good, so well done with that. Now there's not really any faults that I can see with this thumbnail, apart from the fact of the spacing between these icons and the subject. So as you can see right here, you have a lot of negative space, and then on this side right here, you have a minimal amount of negative space. So you're just going to have to work on adjusting these so that they are all spaced out evenly, just to help to make things look balanced. Now there are a couple of things that I would personally adjust or maybe improve on, and I'll just give you those insights. So as you can see, you have 2 negative habits right here. So what I would do is actually, if you could just add an icon, one right here and one right here with a sort of cross, just to visually inform that this is a bad habit. This would just help you in getting the message of the thumbnail across quicker. I'd also say that again, if you do the same thing over here, you just add a tick icon right here in green, and maybe you can even adjust these sort of rims you have at the bottom of your icons and have these 2 be red and maybe these 2 be blue or even green, if you would be willing to change the colors of your thumbnail. Now this thumbnail was done by Elder Amdi on Instagram, and congratulations to you. If I remember correctly, you mentioned that you gained your first paying client and you followed a lot of the information that I provided in my client's video. So well done and keep it up, and I'm sure you'll gain more clients in the future. Okay, moving on to your thumbnail. So I like the simplicity of this thumbnail. It's very simple. You've got text up here, text down here, and you've just got 2 subjects, and it's pretty simple how you've laid things out. I like how you've also blurred out the subject just to create that curiosity gap, meaning that people will have to click on the video in order to find out who this person is. So it's a really good psychological trick that you've added in here. I also like the facial expression of this person here on the left, which is just helping to enhance the fact that he's impressed or shocked by the fact that this 19-year-old person is booking 3 meetings a day on LinkedIn. So a very nice way of just imbuing some emotion into the thumbnail. And I also like the use of the arrow just to symbolize that this is the person in question. This is the main subject of this thumbnail. Now I don't see many faults, if any, in this thumbnail, but what I would do if I was to add my own personal touch is I would just move this subject more to just get some of this negative space filled in. So that way you don't have this sort of massive amount of blank space over here. What I would also do after doing that is maybe just move this text over here so that it lines up with this line. So as you can see right here, if you just sort of bring the text over here, you'll have everything sort of lining up against this line. So it just looks better from an aesthetic perspective. So yeah, just move this subject more to the right. Maybe you can even move this subject more to the left just to make some space. Maybe take it up to about here, just to create a bit more separation between these two people since they look quite close. But apart from that, really good thumbnail. And this is an example of what would be a high CTR thumbnail. So well done, Eldar, and keep it up. Now this thumbnail was created by Daniel R Graphics on Instagram. And I can tell that you've created a trading/forex style of thumbnail, and I can tell that because it says trading right here, and obviously we have some sort of trading signals here, and we have the information right here of the earnings from the trading signals, I'm assuming. From an aesthetic standpoint, I really like the color scheme you have going on, and I can see that there's a lot of attention to detail with this thumbnail. If we zoom in, you can see that there's a lot of overlays in the back. You can see there's a sort of grid going on right here. Let's just move over here. You can see again that there are some trading signals in the background here, and you can see there's some more even further back. So a lot of subtle detail added into this thumbnail, and it's paying off because it looks really good. I also like how you have the money at the bottom right here and over here, and I like how you've added in a sort of blue tint to the money just to make it match with all the elements on screen. I can also see that you've added in a bit of a drop shadow over the icon just to create that extra bit of realism, so that's a nice touch as well. And what I really like is the gradient you have going on with the text. So I can see that you've also emulated it on the top of this icon, and that's sort of like a rim light effect, so it looks really good. Now regarding faults, I don't actually have any faults for you, but what I would say, and I'm going to give some advice in my personal opinion, is that let me just clear this canvas first of all, is that you've got a lot of elements in this thumbnail. So if we just count 1 element, 2 elements, 3 elements, 4 elements, 5 elements, 6 elements, you have your text, you have some icons over here as well. You've got some more things in the background over here. So you've got a lot going on in your thumbnail. And sometimes, just as you can make a thumbnail too simple, you can also do the exact opposite and overburden the thumbnail with too many elements, which actually can take away from the main focus of the thumbnail. And so what it ends up becoming in some scenarios is a piece of art as opposed to a thumbnail with a clear intention on what it wants you to look at. Now for you specifically, I would say that you're pretty much on the edge or upper limit of what I would consider too much. So right now you could probably get away with the amount of elements you have in your thumbnail, but any more than this I would say is too much. What I also like and maybe would recommend is that you add the same sort of glow you have going on right here on top of the icon on the icon over here, since it looks as if it doesn't have that much of the glow effect. As you can see right here, it's quite bland, and maybe over here as well. So just add the same glow you have over here just to keep that consistency going. And I like how you have the word tested over here with the underline, and you have the arrow over here, but maybe we can experiment with the arrow coming from the phone and pointing towards tested, just to help to bring some more correlation between these two elements. Okay guys, moving on to the final thumbnail, which was created by Thumb Expert on Instagram. Okay, now I like how you've added in this two-tone gradient effect you have going on here where you're splitting the screen, and I like how this sort of covers this particular subject. So I'm assuming that this is the person that is reacting to this topic. Now I also like how you've grayed out this subject, and I'm assuming that this is Rohit Sharma, and because of this red icon I can pretty much make the assumption that this is Rohit. But yeah, just to circle back to the topic, I like how you've grayed out this subject just to enhance the idea that it might be the end of his era. I also like the font that you are using, and I like how you've color coded things just to help it separate from the background. So as you can see, you have a lot of vibrant colors going on right now. Having this black border really helps to separate the text from all the other things going on in the thumbnail. And one more thing that I like is the color of the t-shirt you've selected for the subject right here. Now I don't know if this is the original color of the t-shirt or if you've manually changed the color of the t-shirt, but I like how it creates some separation between these two subjects, because if not, if this guy had a white t-shirt t-shirt, many people who aren't cricket fans may be inclined to think that this person was part of the team as well. So again, a good color choice of the t-shirt because it separates this person from these two candidates right here. Okay, moving on to the faults. Now I can see one fault which is really clear to me, and that is that you haven't grayed out the ear. As you can see, you have this sort of black and white effect going on here, and it sort of looks like you just haven't grayed out this part of the subject right here. So moving on to improvements, what I would do is I would just simply gray out this whole subject right here, and then I would just add a nice orange rim light on the end right here. And maybe you can have it as this light source giving some light to the subject on the edge of his face. And one more adjustment that I would personally make is I would just add a question mark right here, just simply because it's a question, so we want to make it very evident and clear that it's a question. Is it the end? And there you have it guys, me reviewing your thumbnails. Now if you want your thumbnail to be reviewed as well, just make sure to leave me a DM on Instagram and make sure that you send me a screenshot of your thumbnail. Now I'm going to be reviewing about 7 thumbnails per episode, especially since I really like to analyze things and I want to give you guys the best possible review I can. If you liked this video, make sure to leave a like and also subscribe to my channel for more content just like this. Thank you very much guys for watching this video, and until next time, peace.